The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of WTJX, its board, staff, or underwriters.
On this episode of Comes with the Territory,
Get bus and they're running.
the ongoing effort to bring back the glory days of horse racing to the territory is gaining momentum. We'll sit with Sports Park and Recreation Commissioner Calvert White and other stakeholders for an update. Plus, developers have again set a new completion date and asked for more money to finish the long-delayed Paul E. Joseph Stadium in Frederickstead. We'll have more. And later, an update on the proposed Virgin Islands Olympic Center on St. Thomas, a multi-million-dollar sports facility designed to help advance sports tourism in the territory. Joining this week's panel discussion to provide insight on these issues and more are Jose Tony Rosario, President of the Virgin Islands Amateur Boxing Federation, Angel Chico Morales, President of the Virgin Islands Olympic Committee, and Uzi Richard, FIBA Central Board Member and a CODIPA Vice President. Comes with the Territory starts now. Hello, and thank you for joining us on Comes with the Territory. I'm Lesley Comisiang. We begin with a look at recent positive developments in the territory's horse racing industry. The effort to restore the territory's once vibrant horse racing industry has faced some major legal hurdles in the 6 years since the devastating hurricanes of 2017. But things appear to be getting back on track this year. A groundbreaking ceremony was held in April for the Clinton E. Phipps racetrack on St. Thomas, and progress has swiftly followed since then. Last month, Southland Gaming announced that Phase 1 was finished, including a new grandstand and parking area. Contacted via email recently, Southland Gaming's Chief Operating Officer Shane Gaspard wrote, Phase 2 construction activities have now begun. Materials and crews are on site, ensuring the project's progression remains on track. Southland Gaming is committed to ensuring the project's completion in a timely and collaborative manner and delivering on its pledge to the Virgin Islands community. The Clinton E. Phipps racetrack is poised to become a significant cultural landmark, not only for St. Thomas, but for the broader Virgin Islands. On St. Croix, progress at the Randall Doc James racetrack has faced its own set of challenges. At a Senate committee meeting in August, VIGL's General Manager of Racing Operations, Jason Williams, told lawmakers they were still waiting on necessary permits and licenses to begin.
I'm just as frustrated as everyone. As I go about the island, I can't go any single place without anyone commenting to me about the racetrack and lack of progress. So I sincerely hope that we break ground within short order.
Contacted recently, Williams had some good news. The project is now moving forward, and Williams said a groundbreaking ceremony was scheduled for December 14th. And joining me for the show today are Commissioner Calvert White, Commissioner of the Department of Sports, Parks, and Recreations, Hugo Hodge Jr., the Chairman of the St. Thomas St. John Horse Racing Commission, and on St. Croix joining the show virtually is Elroy Bates Jr., President of the Flamboyant Park Horsemen Association, and Marcus Knight, the Vice President of the Flamboyant Park Horsemen Association. St. Croix gets the first question in this one. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Bates. We just had a recent announcement of a groundbreaking on the island of St. Croix. VIGL is ready to go. Has that breathed any life into the horsemen? And what are your feelings about hearing about this December date for groundbreaking at the track?
It's a good thing. I wish we have heard that too, because up to today, they haven't told the Horseman Association anything about a groundbreaking. So you got the news before us. But that's okay. We'll accept it. But like before, we've had many dates before and nothing have ever happened. So let's hope something happened this time.
Mr. Knight, with all the delays, I'm sure there's been a lot of frustration. Explain to our viewers how many horse owners there are approximately on the island and how many horses there are. And let's talk about the economics of maintaining a horse.
Well, right now, I can't give you a specific number of horse owners because it's been, 7 years since 2016. We haven't had no horse racing. A lot of owners have left the game, horses have passed. It's a pretty expensive sport to take care of a horse. So, without racing going on, a lot of the owners have left. It's not a cheap sport, and feeding a horse is not very cheap. So, it's very expensive. So, right now, owners have left. Only the strong people that's here right now have horses.
Mr. Hodge, we're going to come to you and talk about St. Thomas, where we've seen some really rapid progress at the Clinton E. Phipps racetrack. I believe the groundbreaking was on April 11th, and Southland Gaming has already announced completion of Phase 1 and the start of Phase 2 of the project. And it looks like we may just be on target to have carnival races for 2024. The disparity between the two, and I know that has nothing to do with you, and we're going to talk about the recent split between the two boards, but how do you feel about how things are moving on St. Thomas?
I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing at St. Thomas. Spoke to the guys from Southland Gaming earlier today, and correct, Phase 1 is complete. Phase 2 is on the way, which includes the VIP section, the restrooms, the entertainment center, all the rest of the development for under the stands and whatnot. And so that's a good positive thing for us. The date is supposed to be completed by is before Carnival next year. There's a possibility we may have something prior to that on a temporary basis. So looking forward to getting some horse racing at St. Thomas. Really, the best thing for me was to have both of them moving at the same pace. I'm all about the entire territory, not just one district. So really was hoping to see VIGL move at the same pace, and they had a jump start on Southland Gaming. So I was hoping to see them actually farther ahead, but it hasn't been the case.
Commissioner White, let's talk about St. Thomas's track and how we'll be able to put races on for Carnival. What's the next steps? With Southland completing the construction phase, is there a promoter that has to be secured? Are they going to be promoting the races? Let's talk about those logistics.
Yeah, so prior to the track being finalized and open, the Department of Sports, Park and Recreation will probably put out an RFP for potential promoters who are interested in promoting the sport of horse racing. I do know that currently the St. Thomas St. John Horse Racing Association and the other association, the Nada Horse Racing Association, is interested in running races temporary. But we'll put it out there and have potential promoters bid on the package.
Going back to the island of St. Croix, Mr. Bates, in the interim, how does your organization stay together? Mr. Knight talked about how difficult and expensive it is to, maintain a horse. How is your organization basically keeping it together? And let's talk about the frustrations that this, 6-year period since 2017 has, challenged your organization with. And how are you guys working with VIGL towards the development and eventual holding of races at the Randall Doc James track?
Well, my organization is frustrated. When we have meetings, no one shows up, and I don't blame them because there's nothing going on. VIGL, we met with them about 2 months ago. They asked us to help who we know, talk to who we know. If we see them in the street, speak to them. But we are doing that. But VIGL, to me, I think they're playing a game because right now VIGL have all the permits to start working on the racetrack. Because you have your DPNR permits, you have everything work and start. But they don't trust the government that they might build a casino and then cannot get the casino license. So they're waiting on that license in order for any work to start, which it is frustrating, but that's out of our hands. We can't do nothing about that. That's the government and VIGL.
Commissioner White, To Mr. Bates's response just now, encapsulate for the audience sort of a timeline since 2017. What has happened with horse racing, and how we've ended up with the disparity. And to be honest, with the progress, shooting forward so fast on St. Thomas and St. Croix still kind of left behind. Encapsulate that for the audience.
Let me try to give the short version. I think prior to this administration, the former administration, the MAP administration, had issued a franchise agreement to VIGL to run both racetracks, the Randall Jack James and the Clinton E. Phipps. During that time, Southland Gaming filed a lawsuit claiming that the government infringed on their exclusive contract to run the VLTs in St. Thomas. That took several years. We was able to come to agreement where VIGL decided that they would release the St. Thomas track from under their contract and just focus on St. Croix. And then at that point, Southland Gaming then agreed to build out the track on Clinton E. Phipps racetracks, and here we are today.
And Mr. Hodge, we talked about the progress. I mean, for folks living in the Bavoni Nada area or on the East End, the grandstands went up really fast. It's almost like, could we put Southland in charge of rebuilding everything? Because, I mean, the progress has been so rapid. Has that bred any enthusiasm into, members of the commission, the horse owners associations on both islands? You're talking about even doing potential temporary raises even before Carnival, which is amazing to hear. And I'm sure for horse racing fans that are viewing, they're excited to hear that. Let's talk about, if that were to happen, how it would happen, and how people feel now that they're seeing this level of progress take place.
Definitely a lot of excitement. I get approached in the street on a daily basis. People are happy to see the progress. They take pictures as they drive by. They show you pictures of what they're seeing with the construction. So it's kind of re-energized the horse racing enthusiasts here on the island of St. Thomas and those from St. John. As a result, you have a lot of conversation taking place. You're starting to get requests from different entities about maybe hosting a temporary race. When you speak to Southland Gaming, you know that the construction schedule for the grandstand, with everything phase 2 being completed, is prior to Carnival. So the Carnival races has been their goal of being completed by then. But with the advent of some of the other entities that want to, some of the horse owners that want to hold temporary racing and their requests that are coming in, there's a lot of excitement out there right now. And I imagine that we'll see something take place. The main thing is safety, right?
Yes.
So with construction going on the site, you want to make sure that you're at a point where it's safe to have fans out on the track, not disrupt what's being done construction-wise, but make sure it's safe for them to enjoy what takes place on the track itself. And I know that right now they're finishing phase 2 of the grandstand, but they're also going to deal with the jockey.
The paddocks, yeah.
Well, the jockey room first, because it's on top of the cistern, then the paddocks and whatnot. So there's a lot of work that's still going to take place, but they're moving at a good pace.
We're going to go back to St. Croix to Mr. Knight. I have a quick question, because in this conversation, it almost feels like a tale of two cities. And we talked about some of the frustrations being experienced by horsemen on St. Croix. And recently, there has been a split from a unified commission to each district's now having their own commission. How do you think that's going to improve the status of horse racing on the island of St. Croix?
Well, over here in St. Croix, we have been dealing with our own commission for all the time we have been doing horse racing. I mean, it was put in place when Governor Mapp came on board, and it had one promoter, which was VIGL, going to run the 2 tracks. That's when he brought the idea of having one commission. But like you said earlier, the progress in St. Thomas, how it's going on, and just basically how everything is in the government and the islands right now, people in St. Croix see that we're getting left behind and nobody's doing nothing to bring it forward. And we, the members of Flamboyant Parkers Man Association, we represent a body, and everybody we need to get this split. We're going to get left more behind, and the building of the grandstand and everything that's going on in St. Thomas just make it more harder for us. So we said we have to get it done. We've been this way before. We think that's the best thing for us to do.
Commissioner White, based on that response, from my perspective, it seems like you have two entities that were responsible for a job. One entity is moving forward and one has had delays for whatever reason, despite having a head start, like Mr. Hodge mentioned. Do you think that split will facilitate any further progress in what's going to take place at Randall Dock James Park? Or does it just boil down to one entity, basically having their act together and moving forward with a plan and having the finances to move forward with the plan versus one that was introduced to the territory as an entity, quite frankly, after Southland to do this? And is VIGL the group to move things forward on St. Croix?
Well, keep in mind, Lesley, it's bittersweet for me because as a commissioner for Sports Park and Recreation, I have oversight over both facilities. So while I see progress being done on St. Thomas St. John and not seeing progress on St. Croix, it's kind of up and down for me. But to answer your question, again, I'm on both commissions. When we had one unified commission, I serve as the ex officio by virtue of my position. With the split, I now serve on two commissions because I am on the St. Thomas St. John horse racing and the St. Croix. So for me personally, it doesn't change. My job is territory wide, so I'll work with both commissions. I've been working closely with VIGL to try to push them to get some progress started. I just like the horse owners, I'm frustrated also because, as I stated, Sports Park and Recreation oversees this sport. And, I've seen a lot of progress in St. Thomas, not seen anything done in St. Croix. So, I'm going to keep my foot to the pedal, keep pushing VIGL so that we can see horse racing territory-wide.
Let me ask you a question, though. At what point does the government decide if progress doesn't take place? You know what? We need to find somebody new.
Yeah, I think, personally, we're getting close to that point. That's a decision that the governor of the Virgin Islands will make. That's above my pay grade. But I think we're getting close to that if we don't see something in the near future, we'll have to make a decision and say, maybe the government needs to build this track.
Let me ask that question to our guest on St. Croix, Mr. Bates. At what point do you think that how much more patience is there with the horse owners and the horse enthusiasts on the island of St. Croix? And how long are you willing to give VIGL with the pending groundbreaking and to see what developments take place in the months after that before you and others say to the government of the Virgin Islands, hey, they've had their chance. This isn't moving forward. Let's get somebody else different to do this.
This is my opinion, not the opinion of the Flamboyant Park Horseman Association. In dealing with Mr. Jason Williams for the past 6 years, 7 years, Mr. Jason Williams have never given an answer to a question. He have never given an answer to a question. This is the first time Mr. Jason Williams have ever put out a date stating something is going to happen. He said December 14, 2023 is groundbreaking. This is the first time Mr. Williams have ever given a date. You could ask Mr. Hodge, you could ask Mr. Knight, you could ask Mr. White. Every Senate hearing he goes to, he get root for not answering questions. So this is my opinion. I think we're on our way in St. Croix.
Well, that's definitely good news to hear. And Mr. Hodge, you certainly have an entirely different scenario you're dealing with now. It's almost like, the best position to be in. Let's talk about the economics and how the economy is affected by horse racing. And we only have a few more minutes left, so I want to end on a positive note. What segments of the community will see rejuvenation as a result of horse racing being reintroduced to at least this district?
Horse racing is an entrepreneurial business opportunity for many other Virgin
And you're a
Islands.
horse owner as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So you have entrepreneurs, you have groups. I'm part of a group that owns horses. We have an LLC form and whatnot, but you have individuals that own horses. You can teach a craft to young men. You can teach them to be handlers, to be
groomsmen.
Groomsmen. Do you name it throughout the responsibilities? Part of what the commission has to do is to bring in trainers to teach all the different responsibilities of the track. So you're teaching people to have a craft. There are people who have left here and gone abroad and taken this craft to the next level. So it's a big part of our community. It always has been. Sometimes when I hear the historians talk about how far back it goes, I'm amazed at how far back it goes. So it's something that's really missing from the community, and it's going to bring an injection of capital into the economy. It's going to bring some excitement. It's going to bring some concession opportunities for certain people. Vendors will have a chance to make some money. The fans will come out, they'll spend. It's just going to really boost the economy, and I'm hoping it can be on both districts. I'm a Virgin Islander, and I want to see both districts thrive because we're better when there's enough for all of us.
Absolutely. Commissioner Wright, real quickly, we got about a minute left. The process for the RFP securing promoters, how long we anticipate that lasting?
You know, it all depends on how many interested parties we're going to get. Usually, we would put it out for 30 days. So it's a quick process. I know there's already talk about some potential individuals that want to put out that bid to be promoters. So I estimate us doing that before carnival races.
And what's the capacity out at Clinton Phipps Racetrack?
I think it's the grandstands we're talking about.
Well, no, total. How many people we go host out there?
I know the stands by itself is 2,500. I'm going to go on wing and say 7,000, Hugo.
Well, I could guess. I could tell you that whatever the capacity is on those first races, especially carnival races, everybody over here is going to definitely be there because I think that the excitement and the people anticipating the return of horse racing is definitely something that Virgin Islanders want to see. We're going to ask Commissioner White, could you stick around for the second half of the show?
Absolutely.
Excellent. From hosting the annual Paradise Jam basketball tournament on St. Thomas to leveraging the FIFA-certified soccer field on St. Croix, the territory has long been familiar with and promoted the concept of sports tourism. Integral to this mission has been the redevelopment of the Paul E. Joseph Stadium in St. Croix. But the troubled project has been undergoing revisions and design changes since its inception. In January 2020, Governor Bryant submitted legislation to support the completion of the long-delayed project. But work on the stadium was again halted in August 2020, pending FEMA's approval, which the governor announced a year later, clearing the way for work to continue. The Public Works Department released some construction images in February and announced that the $27 million project would be completed in the second quarter of 2023. It did not happen, however. A new completion date was announced on November 7th, when lawmakers considered a funding request to provide $5 million to the project for construction and site improvements.
The approximately $5 million being requested will cover the cost of add-ons and further improvements to the project site. The project schedule provided by the contractor has the expected completion date with the additional items in the last quarter of 2024. However, this may change once orders are placed for long lead and fabricated items.
I think that any project of this magnitude brings with it inherent problems. We've been working through those problems with the contractor. There's been a number of issues. I think a lot of it even started with the Clomar issues that we had with FEMA, which caused a delay that was over a year. That has really set us back significantly, and we've been trying to catch up since then.
Another long-delayed project aimed at advancing sports tourism in the territory is the Virgin Islands Olympic Center, a proposed multi-million-dollar sports complex designed to be a resilient shelter during disasters, making it eligible for FEMA funding for its construction. The proposed plan for the dome-shaped sports facility includes locker rooms, concessions, a training area, media rooms, and weight rooms. The complex would be designed to host a variety of sports events and made available to all territorial athletes, regardless of what sport they play. The proposed site for the new facility is the land behind the cricket field adjacent to the Eudora Ken High School on St. Thomas.
The Virgin Islands Olympic Committee and our sport federations can play a major role in developing the sport tourism industry in the Virgin Islands And that's what this facility will also be able to help us in.
There have been other talks with the soccer field and the soccer association getting the land out there. DMV have been talking about putting their facilities out there. And we are also trying to get space for the VI Olympic Committee in order to put that structure. So there are issues back and forth. There have been many talks, many meetings, and I believe that we need to find a way to assist the Olympic Committee because we need to all of them are important and all of them are revenue generators, but at the same time we need to find a way or find a piece of property to assist the Olympic Committee because I believe it's that important in terms of the return on investment.
With us now to share expert insights on horse racing in the territory, the long-awaited Paulie Joseph Stadium, the Olympic Center, and other initiatives to advance sports tourism are Jose Tony Rosario, president of the Virgin Islands Boxing Federation, Angel Chico Morales, president of the Virgin Islands Olympic Committee, and Uzi Richards, central board member of the International Basketball Federation and vice president of the Association of the Pan American Sports Confederation. And of course, Commissioner Calvert White agreed to stay on for our power panel today. Mr. Morales, you just returned from Santiago, Chile, where our athletes were competed in the Pan American Games. Tell us a little bit about how that went for our athletes.
Okay, our athletes competed in Chile. It was cold, the weather was cold, but they performed well. We had Michelle Smith. She competed in the 400-meter hurdles, Cruz Chambry in the foil and fencing, and Nicolas D'Amour. As you know, he's ranked in the top 10 in the world.
In archery, correct?
In archery,
yeah.
Yes. And Cruz says he's one of top ranked in the junior division. So he has a bright future ahead of him. As you know, our federations can bring in international events, but we must have facilities that can host, the countries that are coming in. And it's important for us to finish our facilities, especially like you mentioned earlier, the baseball, Paulie Joseph, the track at Eudora, and even though it's certified, they still need to have some amenities in it,
Sure.
concessions, bathrooms, etc. Cover, as you know, track out there is hot. But we attended also a General Assembly where I heard a presentation by this company, Dome Tech, and building a dome here, and FEMA being can facilitate paying for those that facility, provided they are able to use it in times of disaster. So I said this is a win-win. So I started the process. Vitima, first, initially the senators, of course, and then went to Vitima, they bought in, they filled out the application for us, presented it to FEMA, and then had a few little hurdles, but we've been overcoming them. And right now we have Vitima backing us, the governor's representative in FEMA, VI Housing Authority. So everybody's on board and they want to see this facility come through.
And we're going to talk about that facility and what it will do with Commissioner White a little bit later. But I want to talk to you, Mr. Rosario, as someone who has represented the territory abroad as an athlete in martial arts, baseball. You're president of the Boxing Federation and a member of the Softball Federation as well. Let's talk about, and I don't think a lot of people really get how much economically can be contributed to the territory and what happens when we have teams visit here. Recently, St. John just this year hosted a female softball tournament that was amazing. St. Jonians were very enthusiastic and our own local team did really well in the tournament. From an economic point of view and a crime prevention, which is a point that I've heard you mention over the years perspective, how does this really benefit our students and the economy overall?
Well, to start off, we looked at the numbers of people who came online. Okay, we had 67,000 people in the 2 days watching it, and we never really promoted it like how we could have promoted it. So, it's sports tourism at its best. Okay, these teams want to come back. We are working actually right now on a NCAA Division I softball tournament for St. John, once we get the facility, the commissioner and the assistant commissioner in St. Croix is working and that field. Once that happens, then we'll have a NCAA. They came in already. They looked at the venue. They went to DV. They went to the other, and they said, perfect. They will come. So sports tourism at its best, we have the Thanksgiving tournament here with Paradise Jam, and we'll have Sava tournament Division 1 in St. Croix.
We're going to go to St. Croix to Mr. Richards. Mr. Richards, basketball is arguably the sport that the predominance of Virgin Islands athletes have excelled at. In fact, the sport that we have the most acclaimed athletes in. And you've been involved with basketball. The same question I asked of Mr. Richards, from a crime prevention point of view and from an economic point of view, how does sports tourism affect our territory?
My main concern at this particular point is a thorough understanding of what we mean when we use the term sports tourism, because there's this impression that just bringing events to the territory is in fact a sports tourism activity. I think more importantly, in my mind, there's a need for some structure and organization in the development of sports throughout the territory. The government has also a specific purpose and policy. The manner in which sports federations and the Olympic Committee have to be able to implement and host activities needs to be greatly coordinated so that we could get a major impact and benefit out of it. But the direct response for me in regards to sports tourism is that we need to create an authority to govern, manage, and to organize and coordinate sporting events throughout the territory. We are fortunate to be a territory that have 12 months of good weather, and 12 months of good weather means an activity can be happening at least each month, or at least every 2 or 3 months, that will aid and promote the development of sports throughout the territory, and at the same time be able to encourage greater participation by the local athletes to see that there is some focus on the development of the sport, not only being able to host the events, but to develop the sport locally in the territory.
I'm glad you brought that up. And let me ask you directly, for the Basketball Federation, what programs, starting from the youngest age that students can participate in the sport until the high school level, do we have in place? And are those programs standardized where coaches have all been coached the same way and are teaching our students in a uniform way? And there's standards that are established within those methods that are taught to our students at all?
I would not want to specifically address the subject matter of basketball solely and speak on the matter because of my experience with the Basketball Federation. I'm speaking in sports in general. There's no current tie-in relationship between interscholastic sports, whether you call volleyball, basketball, baseball, football, and these international sports federations representative within the territory. In the case where you have a National Basketball Federation, you have a National Baseball Federation, you have a National Boxing Federation, so that in the structure and the organization and the presentation of sports, and I'm sure Mr. Morales and others there on your forum have seen that in the different countries, there's a direct relationship with the school system, the community sports system, in this case, the Department of Sports, Parks and Recreation, where you can develop, organize, and provide not just coaches clinics and players clinics, but a purpose and a nationalism in the development and implementation of sports policy in the territory.
Well, let's talk about that, Commissioner White. We have a sports federation that exists in the territory. For viewers that may not be familiar, explain the purpose of that federation and how they interact on a scholastic level with the Department of Education, and then programs that are run by the various sports federations in the territory.
When you say federation, we're talking about the Sports Commission.
The Sports Commission,
Sports
excuse
Commission.
me, yes. Thank you for correcting me.
So that commission was created, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago. Myself and Mr. Rosario is on that. And they are mandated in creating the policies in which govern sports in the territory. As Mr. Richards knows, and as well as the members on the panel, federations are to be carrying out clinics and teachings through the different sports whether it's within the education system or in the recreation.
And who makes sure that they do those clinics? Is that the department's your department's responsibility, or?
So, in my opinion, it should be that individual sports federation. They should be holding their federation to a level where they're ensuring that throughout the year that they're carrying out clinics, teachings, development of our youth from a young age. Is that being done now? I don't think it's being done on the level that it should be done, but we have a ways to go. I'm confident that once the Sports Commission do create its mandates and policies and passes it on to all the federations, that those will be carried out throughout the territory.
Mr. Rosario, how do we ensure that those federations do what Mr. Richards mentioned? And who ultimately should have the oversight? Because I know that in certain countries, from the time you can walk even, there's skills and requirements that an athlete at a certain age are supposed to have, and then they progress through a particular system. And certain countries are able to pick out the elite athletes and remove them from the school system even to where they're playing sports for a certain time of the day and their academics are covered outside of the formal school system in that particular country. Who would be responsible for making things like that happen here?
Well, each president of each sporting federation should be responsible for that. It's just like, let's say boxing. Every boxer, every coach that we have is mandated to become certified in both both sides of the referee judging and coaching. Same thing with the Softball Federation. Okay, the Softball Federation coaches should be, and we are working on some stuff right now to do that. That every coach that is coaching softball, if they're not certified, they cannot coach softball. So we are working on that through the federation right now. But before we do that, we have to bring in the courses, okay, on which we are working on that right now. So it falls on the presidents of each sporting federation, from my perspective, to make sure that you do courses, okay? And I would say, through the Olympic Committee, every time we need money for any course and we put it in, the Olympic Committee always passes it.
Mr. Morales, how do our athletes become members of the Olympic Committee, or how does the Olympic Committee make themselves aware of the talent that is in the territory? And quite frankly, who's eligible to represent the Virgin Islands? Because we know that individuals that may live abroad, like for instance, Michelle Smith goes to school in Florida right now, but has parenting from the Virgin Islands or parentage from the Virgin Islands. Who qualifies, and how do they get in contact with the Olympic Committee to represent the territory?
Well, like the past panelists mentioned, each federation is responsible for developing their sports, and that's from the youth level to the junior, senior levels. And then they, in turn, they notify us, we have this athlete, they're qualified to attend the games. So our main responsibility, the Olympic Committee, is to make sure we have funds to take them to the major games, and also to assist the federation in the development of their elite athletes. But each federation has to identify those athletes. Each federation is responsible for having programs, youth talent identification programs, junior programs, and in turn, develop their sport, develop the athlete, and then we send them to games. And many of them have excelled in the past. Basketball has a good program, as evidenced by the gold medal won this summer. And your question concerning who can represent, you must be a born Virgin Islander or of a parent born in the Virgin Islands.
Thank you for answering that
Right.
question.
And if because we've had citizens from the U.S. come down here, you must reside for 3 years before you're eligible to compete for the Virgin Islands Olympic Committee, not necessarily for their federation. They can compete for their federations and attend world championships in 1-2 years. I don't know what their restriction, but ours is 3 years residence.
Getting back to the island of St. Croix and Mr. Richards, let's talk about the Paul E. Joseph Stadium. There seems to be a theme with delays in projects, and the Paul E. Joseph Stadium in the heart of Frederiksted is one of those that for years Virgin Islanders have been waiting for the completion. Our appetites were all whetted with those pictures that we saw in the piece before we started the discussion, hoping that progress would be taking place. But explain to the viewers exactly what the completion of that project would mean for Frederiksted St. Croix.
I'm at a little loss. I wanted to at least make one quick point on the subject that you were speaking out on before, because you left the impression that the question that you asked the Commissioner White, that the Sports Commission is some entity that has some jurisdiction over national federations in the territory, and that is completely false. I think the purpose and intent of the Sports Commission was very important, but I think that it is flawed in looking at the context of the structure and how we should develop sports in the territory. The Paul E. Joseph Stadium is a long-running activity and program that's been around for quite some while. As a matter of fact, the first sum of monies that was awarded for Paul E. Joseph Stadium under the Young Francis administration was some legislation introduced by me from the St. Croix Capital Improvement Fund to make some major repairs to the stand and the facility at Paul E. Joseph Stadium. The following year, also under the Young Francis administration, and this is what frustrates me in listening to the continued request for more money for the Paul E. Joseph Stadium, the Young Francis administration was floating bonds under the Public Finance Authority for a number of capital projects. And we were able to successfully include a portion of funds in there to do the Paul E. Joseph Stadium, in addition to not just the stadium. Senator Samuel Sanis came with an amendment to do a permanent site for the village. So this is something that is frustrating not only to those that play the sport of basketball, but to the entire St. Croix community, that this project has been lingering for quite a long period of time. And then the projected facility that was initially supposed to be built under the MAP administration, I think when MAP administration, was again reduced to a different design, a different approach. And so for me, I think that we're seeing a community that is suffering from not only a lack of facility, because prior to Paul E. Joseph, we also have the Terrence Martin softball field that was there. And so that the amount of funds that is being put into this project and not seeing the results that are expected is frustrating us in the community that know the potential that the facility has. And we can go as far back to when we had the New York Yankees and the Boston Red Sox playing in Frederiksted, St. Croix, in the Virgin Islands.
Thanks for that little bit of history. Commissioner White, facilities. We're talking about a new facility on St. Croix, completion finally of Paul E. Joseph. How do you see us getting past these bottlenecks that we've been experiencing? I mean, does your department have the capacity in conjunction with Public Works and all the other departments to make these things happen?
Yeah, I think we do. Just to piggyback off of what Mr. Richards was saying, keep in mind this project started, I think it was 2012. We're talking about some 11, 12 years ago. As he stated, then during the MAP administration, that design was changed. We had a more lubricant facility. There were some add-ons that Governor Mapp had on there. And then during that administration, we found that the base of the facility was starting to sink, and the governor made a decision, which was needed, to put pilings in the ground so that the facility would be on a solid base. During the Bryan administration, that design then was toned down some. So you have three different designs with three different administrations. I don't know what happened or where the ball was dropped, but the $5 million that we're asking for now, some key stuff was left out. When I became the commissioner, we had a facility that was $27 million that had a chain link outfield fence. We decided to put a wall in the outfield. There was no press box in the design. That's unheard of to have a baseball field without a press box.
Especially if you're talking about sports
Correct.
tourism.
$20 million facility with no press box. So that's part of the $5 million. There was no equipment in there to maintain this facility, riding lawnmowers, stuff to cut the grass. That's part of the $5 million. So again, as you see different administrations come in and different eyes look at the project, I think that's where we see, we missed this and we missed that. I'm going to knock on wood because I firmly believe that I am going to be the commissioner that cuts the ribbon at Parley Joseph Stadium under the leadership of Commissioner Gabriel and Tawana at Public Works. We've seen some movement now with the project, and so I'm confident in the direction that it's going right now.
Speaking of facilities, Mr. Rosario, you have had to get very creative in providing facilities for amateur boxing in the territory. Let's talk about some of the ideas that you've utilized that perhaps the government could also follow, and some of the public-private partnerships you've put in place to make sure that students can participate in boxing.
Well, as you know, none of the facilities that we have, is no student pays. It's free, completely free. So we are working right now, I would like to say, we have some private people in St. Croix that have been helping us with the gym in St. Croix. Without them, the gym would have been closed.
And approximately how many young men work out at that gym right now?
And an average about 50.
Wow.
Okay.
So that's 50 young people off the streets.
Young men.
For a couple hours each day.
And you said before about crime prevention. Since a lot of these kids that came into this program, some are referred to by police, some are referred to by the courts. Since they've been in the program, we haven't had any problems, not one. Okay, so same thing with St. Thomas. Every so often we might find one that, or two that, but we just come off the train track, we put them back on the train track. But being creative right now, like I said, we could probably build a facility in St. Croix that, if we get this facility built, USA Boxing and some of the other bigger countries, like I said, we have 12 months of the year that we can do training. They're willing to come in and train in the winter time, and that would help us also with developing our product a little bit more.
Mr. Richards, getting back to you on a point that you made earlier in our discussion about sports tourism just not bringing an event. It's the training that can take place, the invitation of athletes to come here to the Virgin Islands to train for other events that may represent other countries or that they may be competing in elsewhere. If we were to make it the goal of the territory to put in the proper facilities and to put in the housing, most importantly, that would be necessary to host these kind of events that we could potentially host, what do you see would be the effect that would take place? And do you think that perhaps even renaissance could happen, a rejuvenation of both islands, and more interest from our young people in participating in some of the sports that may take place on the island?
I want to pick up where Commissioner White left off and make sure that you and the panelists clearly understood the point that I was trying to make. And I'm glad to hear the comments that was made by Mr. Rosario. We do not, as we speak today, have sports development with a purpose and a policy that is recognized throughout the entire territory within the Olympic Committee, its Sports Federation, and the government. I think what is most important that I wanted to bring about is that there's a need for a sports authority in the Virgin Islands that would encompass the national federations, our Olympic Committee, that would set forth the purpose and goals that we'd like to accomplish by having sports in the territory and by utilizing sports as a tool for tourism. Mr. Rosario just mentioned a facility. A little over a decade ago, legislation was passed and funded to acquire some 42 acres, of which Mr. Morales, then Commissioner of Sports Parks, St. Clair Williams was part of a commission under the Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority to develop a multi-purpose sports facility on the property in Frederiksted, 42 acres. And politicians were going back and forth and giving the discussion during the MAP-PAD administration to begin and commence the construction of this facility. They reached an agreement to relocate that facility to the campus of University of Virgin Islands. To date, nothing has happened. This is still a project under the Housing Finance Authority. Mr. Rosario said in the land, they have 42 acres of land that could only be used for sports development purposes. According to the deed, we purchased it, the government own it, and so that may be a site that Mr. Rosario can move towards to. But the point that we need to clearly understand, we must have a unified approach of what we would like to get out of tourism by utilizing sports. And my last point, and which is something that concerns me greatly, you have the Department of Tourism that have monies for sports tourism that don't understand, in my mind, the importance of what sports tourism should be in the Virgin Islands. And so when we sit back and look at this kind of funding being used to enter into a contractual agreement with the New York Jets, or to have one professional athlete promote the territory in regards to the tourism, that, in my mind, does not achieve what needs to happen with sports tourism. And my last example of which Commissioner White was one of the beneficiaries of, in 2002, we had 10 men team, 7 women teams, 17 teams from throughout the Caribbean on island in St. Thomas playing basketball from 8 o'clock in the morning until midnight. 10 times more the amount of participants and guests that you have seen at any Paradise Jam tournament, and we still have not found ourselves to understand the importance of developing sports and using sports tourism as an inside-out tool in comparison as an outside-in tool for sports and young people to be able to participate, support, and use as something to promote in the territory.
Well, with that said, and we only have a few more minutes left, so in 1 minute, how can we best, I'm going to ask each of the members on the panel, and I'll start with you, Mr. Morales, to the points that were just made by Mr. Richards, how do we then redirect, restructure, and get the money that this government has invested in the places that will yield us the future athletes of tomorrow?
Well, the first thing we need to do is get the sport policy. I know several of the members have mentioned it. There has been a lack of support from the individuals who are on that commission. I don't think they're fully invested in bringing out a sport policy. That's my opinion. And I think once we have this done, like Mr. Richard mentioned, we will be on our way.
Mr. Rosario, the same question.
I feel the same exactly as Mr. Morales. You know, we have been working on some policies, and like I said, there's lack of interest with some people, you know, to get a quorum to be able to finish. Cause we came a long way, okay? But I feel if they're not interested, then we just put people who are interested, okay, and finish what we started.
Let me ask you a blunt question. With all the years of experience you've had and interaction with different sports, do you think our politicians actually get it?
No, I don't think they actually get what sport tourism actually can do for the Virgin Islands. Because, you know, like I said, if you go to certain places like Chicago, New York, everything is built around. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry that we are losing on because we are not building it.
Mr. White, you too have been an athlete. I mean, Mr. Richards brought that up. You've represented the Virgin Islands as well. Let me ask you, take you back to your athlete days. Do you think you've got the level of support from our government that you needed or your team members needed to excel?
Absolutely not. I think it's a little better now. We're seeing that the government, and I'm not just saying that because I'm the commissioner now, but we do see a lot more resources being put into some of our federations and our athletes. But I think if we're going to get serious about sports tourism, there's going to have to be an entity or an organization created solely for sports tourism. I know I had this conversation with the former Commissioner of Tourism under the MAP administration, but there needs to be an organization between sports parks and tourism that deals with bringing events to the territory. And I think a lot of people think when you just bring a team from the States and put on a tournament, that's sports tourism. Well, if we're not bringing any fans and people are not filling up our hotel rooms and all of that, we're really just putting on a tournament or an event. So I would like to see that organization created where their sole focus is on sports tourism.
Mr. Richards, in 1 minute, what do you think that entity should look like? We created a divisions of festival within the Department of Tourism to handle a FET. So could we do the same for sports?
All I could do is smile and wholeheartedly agree with Commissioner White. And the department that Commissioner White runs now used to be known as the Department of Housing, Parks, and Recreation. And I recall when the young administration sent down the bill to change the name to Department of Sports, Parks, and Recreation. And as a senator, I'd had the authority to create a piece of legislation known as the Vaudin Island Sports Authority. That bill was held up for some 6 or 8 months, and I couldn't convince my colleagues the importance about creating a sports authority instead of just simply renaming Housing, Parks, and Recreation the Department of Sports, Parks, and Recreation. I think that the department Commissioner White runs should be revamped, retooled, restructured, reorganized, funded as an authority to work within the Olympic Committee, Sports Federation, Interscholastic Association in developing the sports so that not only will we have sports development, but through that development, we will also have an opportunity to have a unit under the Sports Authority to develop tourism.
I think that's the roadmap right there. I wholeheartedly agree with that potential solution. Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Believe it or not, our time has run out. These conversations go real quickly, but I'd definitely like to have you guys back on the show at some point to discuss this and other issues. That's all the show we have for you today. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. for an all-new episode of Comes with the Territory, your news updates. Tune in every weekday at 5 p.m. to WTJX on 93.1 FM or by downloading the WTJX app where you can get news updates every 5 p.m. I'm Lesley Comisiong for all of us here at WTJX Channel 12. Have a great Sunday.